We're the Hidradenitis Suppurativas. If you've got HS, you'll want to meet us. It's not your fault, put the shame to a halt. HS divas know how to have a ball. The Hidradenitis Suppurativas. Put the shame to a halt, cause it's not your fault.
Hi everybody, my name is Brinley. Welcome to the Hidradenitis Supurativas podcast, sponsored by UCB.
Hey guys, today with Hidradenitis Suppurativas, we will be talking about sex. Oh my gosh. Sex! Yes, people with HS have sex, okay? And I think a big reason we wanted to talk about this was because HS is not considered a sexy disease, and it's considered gross to a lot of people, even sometimes ourselves. And I think it's still so much of our life to have sex, and we need to start talking about these hard topics. I think we're here to inform partners, people we're having sex with, and even to maybe build your confidence with sex.
Absolutely.
So, Brinley, let's start with you. What is your experience with sex been like with HS, and what are some of the things you may do now, or some of the things you didn't know that help you navigate sex?
I think definitely as I've gotten older, being honest about it, where I was definitely not when I was younger, and everybody's like, oh, God robbed me of my hoe phase, basically, but it didn't stop me. I still experienced mine when I was younger. Not so much now as I'm older. But I think that, when you're younger and you're not accepting of your HS yourself, it makes things really, really difficult and really uncomfortable in certain circumstances. So I found myself, I'd gotten trapped in that rut of not wanting to tell people about my HS, but then being afraid of judgment from them about it as well. So it's kind of well, what do you expect to happen now that you're older and think about it from a realistic standpoint? But as I've gotten older, I think that it's changed dramatically in the way that I'm more open and comfortable, with my own body and with my own flares. And the communication piece is more important to me now than it ever was in the past. So it's interesting as you change and you go through it, that it changes your mindset about it too. And also just being more comfortable talking about it makes me more comfortable in my own skin and in my body. So I think it's a really, really hard topic, I think, for a lot of people, because it's so near and dear to your heart, and because our HS impacts us so significantly in our most private areas. It's how did you describe it to me, Caitlin? We got delivered a pizza, except our pizza got in a fucking accident on the way to where it was going, flipped upside down in the car, got smashed to shit, and then arrived in a box, and you open it. So it's almost that is kind of the way when she said it, I was like, oh my God, you're actually right, because that your sexuality is something so sacred, and we've been told since we were young, right, that it shouldn't be given to everybody, and the expectation is that everyone looks like everyone else that you've seen in porn or whatever, and that's not the case for us. And so we don't look like those people, therefore we don't think we can act like those people. We don't have the right to, in a way. And when she gave me the analogy of the pizza, I was like, oh my God, dude, that is so right. Because that's how I feel about, or felt for a really long time about myself anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And Sid, what has your experience been with?
So I definitely can relate. You would think that you would have bypassed your hoe phase, but definitely, mine was loud and clear.
Yeah.
And I said that on a TikTok live, I remember. And they were like, well, how did you, overcome sex insecurities with your HS? And I was like, girl, I was a hoe. And I'm admitting it. I won't take it back because I did the shit, And as much as it hurts me now to be like, wow, I just don't appreciate those people who I was in that stage of life with. I often say they didn't deserve to know me like that, because I was so promiscuous, because I didn't value myself, because I thought HS took that away from me. I thought I was damaged goods. I thought, let me just sleep with this person because they find me attractive right now, and I'm not gonna tell them. And if it took one person cutting that shit off like
Yeah.
immediately once he saw scars back there. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we can't do this no more. Like, we can't not talk about it. You could think that it's a STD from my explanation if that's something that like is a red flag for you. But if me telling you that this is not an STD isn't enough for us to take this to the next level, that's completely okay. I think I had to be okay with the fact that my HS was not okay to other people,
Mhm.
whether they knew what it
Mhm.
was or not. Like, we have to respect people's boundaries,
Yes.
and all we can do is kind of just like lay our cards on the table. But it definitely hurt me, my sex life. I started sex very young because of how I felt about myself, and I was desiring that kind of connection and attention from the freaking male species in 8th grade.
Yeah,
Like,
anyone and
Dad,
everyone.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. But yeah, and I had to even realize that that was not daddy issues. You know, I think so many promiscuous young women, do I have daddy issues? Yeah, but I I
Do we
can't
all?
yeah, I couldn't blame
Yeah.
that was a part of blame I had to take off of him and realize that like this was my HS. This was the
Mhm.
problem back then. This
Yeah.
is why I felt that way, because my dad was very much so present at that time in my life. So, yeah, it was hard. It still gets hard being a married woman. It doesn't just go away because you choose to be with one person for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So every day I'm just trying to manage what that looks like for me.
Yeah. I think we all take HS so personal, meaning like even with sex, where like our experience is so traumatic because we have HS, or like it's so difficult. And I think sex is difficult for everybody.
Right.
Mhm.
It is so intimate, so personal. If you have sexual trauma, all these things, it's not, as I have learned, I guess, as I've gotten older, it's not as deep as I necessarily make it with my HS and sex. And I've also learned, like, the more you speak out too, the easier sex is. So
Mhm.
communication really is key. And I think for me, so much of my experience with HS, because I had very mild and I was blessed to not, and I still am, to not really have it in my groin. Or I've had a flare up here and there, but like for the most part, it's not really an issue, or in my butt. I think I was able to just avoid the topic altogether, you know? And so if I had one flare up, okay, well, I'm just not gonna have sex for the next month and I'll be okay, because this never happens. But unfortunately, that's not a lot of people's experience with HS. And then as I got older, I got it under my breast very severely. And when I first had HS, it was basically only in my armpit. It was specific to that and nothing really happened. As I've gotten older, it's gotten under my breast, and that's the most severe place. So I am now having to deal with what that looks like sexually, because that was never an issue for me. But I've been very shocked the older I'm getting too, that like with age, I guess, just comes wisdom and comfortability, and on the other end, on whoever you're having sex
Right.
with end. And I think like the more mature you become, for any young woman or men watching this, like it will get better just when you get
Mhm.
older in general. And like I don't think partners really care as much as we think once you get to a certain maturity level, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So even recently I was talking to my wife about it, and I told her we were actually going to be talking about sex on the podcast, and she was like, well, what would you say? And that was her way of like saying, talk to me about sex.
Hold
Like,
up.
what does that look like to you? And I was like,
Let me make sure I'm gonna okay what you're gonna say, bro.
No, but it was her way of asking, like, could you talk to me
Yeah.
about this, you know? And I told her like what I was gonna say, and she was like, well, is that how you feel with me? And I was like, duh, like this is universal. And she was like, yeah, I think my concern has just been about hurting you, like under your breast. She was like, you know, I've been really concerned about like if I braced you, am I hurting you? I was like, you're not grossed out? She was like, no, like that's never been a thing. I know you can't give me HS. I mean, she's like, maybe if you had an open wound, but she was like, it's more about you I'm worried
Mhm.
about. And that was really eye-opening for me too,
Yeah.
because if once again with age, once you're kind of out of your hoe phase, you know,
Yeah.
once you just with maturity, and when you have a more mature approach on sex, like a lot of times if you're having sex with someone who cares about you, they care about your HS, and they're
Mhm.
not grossed out, else they wouldn't be with you in the first place.
Right.
And yeah, so
That's just how it is. Yeah, that's how it is with Josh. He never ever makes me feel like, oh no, your HS is gross, or like, of course we can't sleep together today. Don't you know that like your butt's draining? You know, I think having it on my most intimate areas. I mean, I've been even dealing with the fact that I have been getting HS on like my nipple. We didn't even know that was like. I mean, I guess we should know it was a thing because it ain't the palm of my hand,
Yeah.
the bottom of my feet, and my lips.
But you're like, could we leave one
Yeah,
sacred
it's like,
place, please?
okay, yeah. And it is hard. It is so hard to find those pieces of me, my inner thighs. Like my HS is spreading down my thighs. My butt cheeks are like out of control. And I'm really doing my best the last 9 months to try to manage as much as I can with topicals, with trying to figure out what those, what the rooted issues are to help my HS the best. But I think the biggest takeaway I've had this year was just learning to communicate with my husband.
Mhm.
Like, listen, I know all is love and you want to smack me on the butt and all of these things, but like, we need a code word or we need a safe word. Like, you need to ask permission before you do that, because you could be hurting me unintentionally.
Totally.
And for so long, I swallowed that. Like, I never wanted to hurt anybody's feelings. Like, I would always be like, oh no, it's okay. Or even the times that, you are in a relationship with somebody and you maybe know that they're not the one, and you're okay with being like, oh, I don't want to have sex right now, but like you do it for the sake of that person, and then you're laying down, and that's a shitty feeling when
Mhm.
you're in sexual intercourse with somebody and you really didn't want to do it, or you feel like crap about yourself the whole time because you didn't disclose about the HS. So I mean, I'm still learning how to completely let my guard down when it comes to being intimate, because for my whole life it's felt like I'm laying there and it's like, oh my God, what do they see? I wonder what they see. I wonder if
Yes.
this is gonna drain. I wonder
Let's
if this is
keep
gonna
the
affect.
lights off.
Yeah.
That was
I
like,
don't have
always-
sex with the lights on.
I mean, and the crazy thing is, like, as mature as I am now and how much open I am, like, it's still like lights off. It's just,
Yeah.
it just makes
Period.
it better for me.
I know, and I don't know that I don't know that ever changes. I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I've got years on you guys, and I truly don't know that ever changes.
Yeah.
I feel like as much as you can accept your HS, and as much as you like love that, I love that it's a part of me, because I wouldn't be the person I am today
Yeah.
without it. But at the same time, it's still, to the core of my being, bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that like my husband would see me, or
Yeah.
like I don't like it.
But I
don't. It's hard to get through that.
I think we put so much pressure on the people we're having sex with, and we actually need to start putting that pressure on ourselves in regards to our self-love, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I'm realizing the people who love us, that are sexually active with us, don't have the same lens we
No.
have. They're literally like, what's Ariana Grande's song, Point of View? You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about? Where she's like, I'd love to see you from my point of view.
Yes.
Like, they don't even have this view that we have.
No, it's our
They
own
don't. It's our
baggage. It
own-
is all our own bag, and 99% of the time.
Yeah,
Okay, you do
yeah,
have the 1%
yeah.
assholes who
Right. Who
it
are
is their
assholes,
baggage.
and
Yeah,
you should
of
leave.
course,
sis.
yeah.
But it's the
And
baggage
don't have
that-
sex with them, y'all.
yeah.
Don't. Like, they're, yeah. Like,
Just skip it.
yeah.
But it's totally our baggage that we're bringing
Yeah.
to this, and the only people who can change that are us.
Yeah.
And I think we do put a lot of pressure on our spouses or our significant others to help change the way that we feel about ourselves, and they
Yeah.
can't.
They
They
cannot.
This has
And they
been how
don't
many
feel
years?
the same
No.
way.
And then it to be like years and years on end, and it's nobody's fault. We're all working through it. But like, how many times do you have to hear your spouse be like, babe, I don't see that. Like, I love you regardless. Like, I'm not afraid of your HS. I do not think you're gross. And to have like, what if you're so worried about their opinion that you're not focused on giving that advice to yourself and like picking that up, and then like 15 years later they're like tired of fucking trying to be
Right.
your hype
Yeah,
man. Like,
yeah.
girl, I told you for the last 15 years I love you, and here you are, like, still super depressed, still don't want to have sex with me, still don't want to let me in. And I'm not saying there's any reason for infidelities or why marriages fail, but I'm just always like, let's get to the root here,
Yeah.
you know? And when you have somebody constant, like, even everybody has that friend. I was that friend for a long time, and you're like, damn, girl, like, life gonna get better, it's gonna get better. And it's like a year later and you're like, okay, like, girl, we've been
There's
telling
something-
you, like, stop, you need to get out the house,
Yeah.
you need to leave the cats alone, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, how many times do I gotta tell you
Yeah.
the same thing before you understand this is genuinely how I feel and I'm not lying? So like, I really had to get to that space with Josh, because even though I've been married for 3 years, I felt like the first 4, you know, was of me not letting him all the way in, not really trusting that like he does not care about these scars on my body. And once I genuinely let that guard down and I was like, okay, like, I believe you, like,
Right.
like full transparency, hitting it from the back, sir, you may not.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you may absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, it's a war zone back there. But then he's like, that's actually my favorite. And I'm like, oh, for real?
Yeah, even when I had talked to my wife about it, and this was literally a few days ago, maybe not even a week ago, and when the first thing she said was, I'm just worried about hurting you. I realized during sex, I don't even think about myself being hurt though. Like, that's something I'm like, get through it, even if I am in pain, because I don't want my HS to hinder this
The
sexual experience. And it
yes.
actually kind of made me emotional, and that's when I realized, like, I even need to be more open
I
and
still got
have
work to
these
do.
conversations with myself, because I was like, I've never even thought about if it hurt during, like, I've never even, like, it doesn't matter. I'm just having sex. That's how I have sex. I have sex in pain. And I realized, like, no, I could be communicating to my partner, like, I do have a flare up. This position may work, but this one may not.
Yeah.
Today, this week can be
Different.
We can do this. Next week, I might not be able to.
But we don't think that we're deserving of the right to say that to somebody or to speak up, because we feel like there's something inadequate in us.
It's like it's
that,
already a burden to have sex
yes,
with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And
How dare I
like,
tell you that we have to do it this way
yeah,
today?
yeah. Which is like ridiculous.
Because
know?
guys, they have the fucking audacity. You know?
yeah.
We just gotta snatch a little bit back, because I mean, not even just guys, but I just think like the other person, the other partner, like when you really think about it, they literally have the audacity to be like, I want it now, or I want it at this time, or like, you know, like, and we will just settle and be like, oh, because I should just be thankful enough that you still want to even do this with me. So I'm going to just ride along. And like I was saying before, like I rode along times I don't want to ride along.
Yes. I mean, I think we
let
all
me
have.
out.
Yeah,
Let me out. Like some people, I get it. I should have never it should have never gotten that far, because I just felt that less of myself.
Yep.
But then I'm like, with other people, they just honestly deserved a conversation, and I'm sorry I didn't give them that. And I feel like I've just barely set myself free from like the perception those people may have of me, even till this day, you know. And I'm like, I have to just chuck that up, that's maybe what they know me as, and maybe they don't freaking follow me on social media and know I talk about this full freaking time now. And I just got to do better for the next time. But now I'm married, so there's not next times.
Yeah.
But I could just help other people have that conversation and respect the boundaries they're setting for themselves and the boundaries other people may have. So
Yeah.
I feel sometimes too like we don't take initiative. I know this for myself anyway, because I think the fear of rejection is always there. And I think with HS, we're more susceptible to that rejection than anything else, because we take it instantly doesn't become about maybe it's not the right time or whatever it would be on our end. If it was like, I'm not really feeling it right now, but for some reason that would be like the biggest rejection, and it would have to instantly goes to that has to do with my HS, I'm sure. It's because I was flaring and you knew I was flaring, and now that makes me unattractive to you. And like your mind just goes down this entire freaking rabbit hole that you cannot come back from easily.
Yeah. And I think there's two parts to that. That's okay, because that's part of the experience with HS to feel these things. But then the part B to that is, if we want to do something about it, we do have to work on that self-love from within. Like, it's really, I think I just spent so much time thinking partners even cared. And quite frankly, half of my partners have been like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I literally don't care unless it's hurting you. Like,
Yes.
it's not, I know that you can't give it to me, you know? But also, I remember one time I had sex with someone, and I did have, like, a scar from a flare by my groin, and he simply asked what it was, and it was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you know, we didn't even end up having sex, because I was like, he thinks I have an STD. And, like, also, he had the right to just ask.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know? And
Yes.
that's, like, I realized now that I'm older, that was so immature, too, because he does have the right to protect himself as well. And he didn't assume. He genuinely asked. Like, have you...
At least he asked.
Yeah, no,
My dude just stopped midway. It was like,
I'm out.
and I was like, I'm out too, motherfucker. I'll never see you again.
But I think even that, I'm realizing how personally I'm taking this when someone does have the right to protect themselves.
Absolutely.
And even on the other end, when we do see someone, even knowing what we know about HS, we should stop sexually and see, you know, if there's a bump and ask questions. You know, we should be doing these things. So I think we have to, like, really start taking sex, and I think that's why we have to have these conversations, because when you don't, that's where these problems occur. You know, like,
Assumptions
and
make an ass
also
out of
let's
you
talk
and
about
me.
so many people get ingrown hairs. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Which can look very similar to HS, and I think just the treatment could be the same. We are learning that waxing is good. Can you give us the facts of why waxing is better than
Yeah, so
shaving?
waxing, shaving, it bothers the hair, like it cuts it off, and then there's still the follicle left in there. Whereas with waxing, you're more
So
likely to
okay.
pull the follicle out as well, which makes it less likely for HS to occur there.
Okay.
So waxing is definitely the preferred method as far as hair removal goes, or laser hair removal, but that's also can be
Waxing
very
is
costly.
Yeah, of
more
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
course, yeah.
So that's something to take into account too. But yeah, it's and sex can cause flares, you guys. So a lot of people will be like, "Oh my god, after I have sex I end up with a flare like on my mons pubis or, you know,
And
down by your
can you
labia."
tell us
And
why?
it's like because I think a lot of it has to do with the friction and the
Okay.
heat
Okay.
and the hormone release.
Okay.
So yeah, exactly.
Little
Yep.
bump and grind, did too much.
No,
You done
because
did
I've
too
never
much.
transparently I've never even thought about that, you know, because like I said, I don't have it too bad there, so I feel like I'm blessed to not have that effect. But that's very
Yeah.
interesting
So
to
it
know
can
too.
definitely happen as a
Yeah.
result of sex.
And not only
Okay.
that, just the sex. I mean, waxing has helped me with my sexual confidence. Like, I really was like advocating it for that. That's why I did waxing in the first place last month with Hannah. Because I was like, you know what? Like, the hair down there needs to not be anymore. You know, like for me, I'm not that girl. I was for so long, you know, just grown hair, using trimmers, and that would always give me like the nastiest flares. So getting waxed improved my sexual confidence like so much, but it's also helped with like I didn't get as many flares compared to a different hair removal thing, and I threw all razors away years ago. So
But I think what's helped me too is understanding that like it's okay to maybe not shave in
Mhm.
general, you know, that's your right. And then B, that like it's also okay to just not do it because I have something going on with HS. You know, like it's okay to keep this hair here and communicate to my partner like, hey, I usually might keep it bald down there, but this month,
Yeah.
you know, I'm gonna try and see how it
yeah.
goes, you know. And I think that's like something you have to decide. And I think just really looking in and communicating is gonna go a long way with sex.
And you're not the only person who has all of these feelings and like
Yeah.
insecurities and, you know, all these the most deep, dark secrets
Yeah.
and scares about it.
Yeah.
I think I would say probably 75% of the people at least feel the same way you do.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you've got your other 25% of the people who are just carrying on regardless of their HS, and more friggin' power to them. But I feel like personally my HS has robbed me of the ability to feel free sexually.
Yeah.
To
Yes.
not have to ever have that worry. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I always wonder, and more so in the past than being an old married bitch now, but like did that make I'm more inhibited because of that, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I never felt like I could just be like totally free and let go because I always had to be on the lookout or, you know, worrying so much about what somebody else thought.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it really did hinder my ability and in just being completely free about it.
Yeah.
And I think even if we touch on like being who you genuinely like want or feel called to be, I mean, the sex workers who may have touches or spells of HS. I mean, Mahala's a model and a beautiful one who has HS. And I mean, but what if they would have what if you would have let that stop you
Yeah.
from, you know?
But I think I also have to acknowledge like it has, and I think they're still privileged with having stage 1, and I know it's hard to say for some people, but I don't have the more severe. I have HS in places I am able to cover up, so I also don't want to act like my walk is necessary. I mean, it's still valid, but I don't think, unfortunately, like even the modeling industry or is ready for someone with stage 3 HS, which is unfortunate, you know?
Yeah.
And so even with sex, that's why I want to make sure to ask you guys a lot about your experience. I don't have it in my groin or butt bad, and I never really have. So to even act like my experience is the same as you guys, it's just not. You know what I mean? Like, I've had a better probably sexual experience with HS than you guys have. You know, like, it's under my breast now, but like, it's, you know, like, sex to me is so vaginal a lot of the time, you know, as women, and so it's been a different experience for me.
Definitely not for me, girl. I don't know what I would do if I could not use these beautiful babies right here. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's maybe because my HS is more dominant below, you know, because I am an advocate for happy wife, happy life, but I know that I'm not a happy wife if I got a grouchy husband. You're being annoying. So, like, I am fully transparent of the fact that sometimes my HS limits my sex life.
Yeah.
And if that is true, because like I said, my husband's been very clear, like, I don't ever want to hurt you. So I don't ever want you to push through for me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't have HS on my breast until this year and on my nipple, and it's very different, but I can still do what I want to do. You know?
No, it's not.
So, I mean, you got to learn to rally. And I think I'm not ever saying that, like, if I reached a point where I just shut my shit down sexually to my husband, I don't know how my marriage personally would deal with that, you know? So I knew I had work to do. Just because you marry somebody and you sign a paper and you commit your life to them does not mean that takes all of your sexual insecurities away.
No.
If anything, I knew I had to start working harder, because at least if I wanted to have a one night fucking stand, I could choose to not tell you about this shit. Either we're gonna have a good time and I'm never gonna see you again. Yeah. You know, but like, I had to keep looking this man in the eye, y'all, every fucking day. Like, so I knew I needed to really get in tune with myself and like, we need to figure out this system. So I need you to respect my boundaries. When I'm flaring, please respect my booty space, you know? If I'm not flaring, you know. Like, he just knows because I move differently, I act differently. And if not, if I am, I rally. My mouth still works. And my boobs are still great, you know? So, like, I try not to make him suffer for something that, honestly, he has no control of. And he does his best to make sure that, like, I'm not gonna make you feel like shit on the other side of that stick any kind of day, you know? So like, even today, like when we fly back home tomorrow, you know, and I have something going on my vajayjay, and I'm like, okay, and even though I'm fucking excited, I just got waxed. She's pretty, she's cute, you know?
She's ready to go.
I'm like, we're still on delay. But I set those boundaries for myself instead of feeling like, oh, I have to, he's entitled to this because I ain't seen you for the last 4 days. You know, figure your shit out. And I'm not saying that my husband is a huge corn watcher. He's not. I also had to have that conversation with him. Like, I don't get offended. Like, I think you love these women, but like, realistically, baby, I ain't ever gonna be able to do that.
Let's keep the bar low.
Yeah, so like, we shouldn't do this anymore. And I used to watch it too, personally, privately, because I think even when you're flaring sometimes, like, I was celibate for almost 14 months one time. And I still did what I had to do. And now that I'm married, though, I'm like, okay, when we're feeling that way, we should just come talk to each other first. Because then there was times where I'm like, oh, you're in there doing that? Well, I was in the mood and you missed out. And then I'm like, but did you miss out? Because you're watching something that I cannot clearly do. You know, so I really had to learn all these conversations, and we feel so uncomfortable, but like, bro, you literally married this person. So just have a conversation.
Because it lets them into like a certain insight and a part of your mind, and that you don't let other people go to.
Yeah.
And although it is your husband, it still feels very awkward sometimes to like say what your wishes are, or what you wish could be different between the two of you, or how you wish you could operate differently, or just what your desires are. Like, for some reason, it can feel very awkward to do that.
Yeah.
But at
like,
the same
what's
time,
your
you're
kinks? And then they tell you, you're like, for real?
I'm out.
I think we put these expectations on our partners to maybe even initiate these conversations, but we won't initiate them, even with our friends. So, you know, I think that's where community comes in too. With HS, you have to learn to get good friends. You have to learn to date people who value you so much further than looks and all these things. These are essential things. But when you have that community, like, you'll start talking to your friends about this, you know, like even one of my beautiful things is all my friends be like, let me see your HS, let me see what I'm looking like now. And I'm like, how did I even, like a few years ago, I didn't have those type of friends, you know? And another thing for me, you guys know I crack a joke about being a nudist. I was like ready to put on a robe for this episode, but I don't think a lot of people realize a big reason I like to be nude more is that means no underwear, no bras, no places on the places my HS is affected, you know, like, and it's actually very helpful. And so even I've had to communicate to my wife about that now too. Like a lot of times I choose to sleep naked is simply because it is more comfortable for me. You know,
what a privilege you got.
I know y'all got the kids. Look,
they're so annoying.
Y'all got the kids. But yeah, I think it's just like finding what's working for you and really having these conversations. And we know nobody's talked about this with HS, you know?
And even the underwear and the bra part, like Brinley said, her mom literally looked at her one day and was like, why are you wearing a wired bra?
Yeah.
And I mean, it can feel like you're robbed of these like sexier moments that like, oh, well, I want to go to Victoria's Secret and pick out, you know, the lace panties. Please don't. They're so bad for us.
Yeah.
And,
just
you know,
skip it.
Skip it. You're saving money. Okay. They're expensive. And the wired bras. And I'm like, I don't even know the last time I even got sized because, baby, give me the sports bra. Like, I don't have time. They don't irritate me in this area. And it's just like, okay, if you want to go find you a sexier sports bra, do that. But you don't need to punish yourself to entertain somebody else, whether it's lingerie, whether, you know what I mean? And cotton underwear or they're the best.
I haven't worn underwear in years for the most part. Like I do when I'm on set and stuff. I have to, you know, courtesy.
You're not gonna lie.
No, I have to. The stylist would be like, she ain't got no underwear. Nasty. I don't have
you putting that ass on my chair?
Yeah, I don't have a choice. But like these are things I make sure to just do outside of it. And the crazy thing is I don't have a severe issue with HS in my groin, but when I wear underwear a lot, I do. All of a sudden, no matter the type, I have every underwear under the sun. It starts being a problem in my groin. And so even that, I've had to normalize my sisters to me were best friends, but they're also the biggest B words in my life, you know? And it's always like, she ain't never got underwear on. And now I make sure to even correct them and say, because I'll have a flare up. Yeah. And then y'all are going to be complaining about me stinking. Yeah. So, hey, I can't.
And you're going to be, then you're going to tell me I'm depressed and I don't want to go out and I'm bitchy. All because you wanted me to wear some damn underwear.
But even that, one of the most beautiful things I've learned about with my sisters is they just didn't know. I'm shocked now that they find their self-correcting. You know, sisters just, at least me and my sisters, we come for each other all day. That's how we have fun together, you know? But now even like one of my sisters, I immediately watch her correct and think about what she says with certain things. So even like when we're on vacations, you know, it's like she knows Mahala's doing this now because of the HS. And even now they do like smell checks, but nicely like, hey, let's do a deodorant check, everyone. I'm like, I know they're telling me I stink. Thank you. You know, I'll take it. And it's actually became very beautiful for us. But so much of that was just educating them. Yeah. You know? And it sucks. Like you talked about how a lot of it becomes our responsibility. I think this is a lot of struggles, racism, you know, it becomes Black people's jobs to educate people. But it's just how we make changes in the world.
My sisters totally treat me differently now that they see me talk about my HS. Yeah. Like they understand when I commit to something and then I back out. Like it's not because she's always wanting to be, I mean, sometimes I'm flaky. Don't do I ain't gonna do too much. Okay, we're gonna go 70-30 on this, guys. But most of the time, like, and they all see me post the video because I'm never faking a flare, you know? Like if you see me walking funny, it's for real. And so they'll be like, are you still coming today? Like I saw your video. It's totally okay. Like we don't want you to feel guilty. And even like my best friends, Josh's people, it makes you feel seen in such a powerful way. Like, oh my gosh. And now they do understand even with the smell too. Like I used to feel so guilty or I was always sweating. And then my sister came out, she's like, I have hyperhidrosis too. And I'm like, it might not be HS, but girl, we're getting somewhere. Like
we both have letters.
Yeah, this is why you wear black. This is why I wear black. Like it's when we let people in, it's just empowering for us too.
But I've learned too, people can't respect you unless you respect yourself, and part of respecting yourself is speaking up, no matter how hard it is. With yourself. Yeah. And so even chronic fatigue is one of my worst symptoms of HS. Like I would say what impacts me more than anything emotionally is the fatigue. The fatigue kills me. I mean, even I'm thinking about that the other day. We were talking about me sleeping so much. I sleep because I'm fatigued half of the
She's
time.
like 10 hours. I was like, what the
But
Same
That's
with our
almost
kids,
half
like,
the
I get
day.
2.
Yeah, I'm like, I got 5 hours and I'm good, girl.
No, but when I think about it, so much of my HS is definitely fatigue, and I just start to feel like throughout the day, just I need to sleep, and that impacts my sex life too. I
Yes.
want to go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock. Like,
Is that because our body's working so hard, or like what is fatigue?
Yeah, chronic
like?
fatigue is definitely a part for a lot of people with their HS. It's something that happens for them.
And I think that's another just layer of shame, because whether you're a mom or working a 9 to 5 or whatever that looks like for you, like you feel so much guilt because you're like, oh my God, I'm tired. Like I don't have the energy. I'm drained. Or you're
well, and I'm
fucking
always called
hangry or
lazy
mean.
for it.
Yeah.
Like growing up, it was she's lazy. She
Yeah.
wants to sleep 10
Well, and
hours.
at the end of the day, that impacts your sex life in a huge way because, like, if I have to make the decision of making lunches for my kids for the next day for school, I don't have to anymore because mine are older, but or like coming to bed and having sex, like I don't know, man, that's a friggin' toss up because
let's just take a nap.
It means I don't have to get up that much earlier tomorrow to do it, or it plays a huge role.
Yeah, and I think even that though, that's something we can communicate to people we're having sex with, like, hey, I need you to make the lunches if you want some tonight. All jokes aside, like, but I'm realizing so many of my failed sexual relationships or sexual trauma with HSs came from me simply not talking about it.
Yeah.
Not even talking about it. I think so
Pretending
much of my
it doesn't
HS,
exist.
so much of my HS experience is just let's
not
act
happening.
like it's not even a thing.
So many outfits ruined that I'll never get back because we just weren't going to Band-Aid up. We weren't going to cover.
It's an all-white party, dying. I'm dying.
I'm never
dying.
going. Don't invite me. Don't invite me.
Yeah, do not.
They
not wearing
literally
white for
have
your
them
wedding,
every
just so
year.
I know, and I want all white so bad.
No,
like, HS,
you
can I
can't
have
listen.
something?
No,
can I have an all white?
You have HS
No.
friends. You can't have all
Please
white
don't.
parties.
You're right. You're right. Life sucks.
You'll
when you
have to
die,
make
y'all.
it. You'll have to
My
make
wedding dress was actually like light brown beige. First of all, I just wasn't doing the white because I ain't no virgin. So but I remember how that buying that dress HS impacted what dress I bought.
Yes.
Because I was like, we can't do no lace right here. The dress my mom wanted to buy, I'm like, girl, did you forget who I am? Like, we cannot do lace all up in here, and it's all up in here, and there's nothing that you can alter that's not gonna irritate that and make it messed up. But then I ended up settling on a dress that was strap like this shirt, and I'm to a place now where I can lift my arms and wave, or my bad, where I could praise, and it's all good whether you see scars or not. But that my wedding was a very big moment for me because I was like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna take pictures, you're gonna see the scars, but I kind of just like powered through because it was either you have all this fabric up here, like even a strapless dress was not an option for me because I'm like, that friction is terrible. So yeah, we have to pick our battles.
Same thing. I wore a long sleeve wedding dress or 3/4 sleeve wedding dress for my. Well,
I used to
I've had
ask
2
for long
marriages.
sleeve swimming suits. I'm like, when's somebody gonna make one? And now they're making them for all the kids. I'm like, I just need a full size because I'll be honest, like swimsuits, I'll wear one if I go to like a hotel or something, because of this it's limited, but I very much so cringe even at myself when I try to wear a regular 2-piece swimsuit to the fucking swimming pool. Like, my anxiety. I'm like, please, I need some spandex.
It's a you
and
thing. Once again, it's a you thing. Like, even I remember when I first started like really being more open and being, wearing whatever. My sisters, at that point in my life, I was still insecure. So if you saw it poking out of my top, I want you to tell me. But now I'm so much more confident. I don't care. Let the chlorine hit it, or let the whatever I need, the salt water. Like, I don't care. I'm not as. And now my sisters just don't say anything, which is beautiful. I see them looking. They're like, "What the hell is that under there?" She don't care.
Mind your
I
business.
couldn't handle it, but it's like, it's our life, and yeah. As we wrap up, do you guys have any advice you could give maybe young women starting to have sex with HS?
Skip the hoe phase. It's not worth it.
It's not fucking worth it.
I think my hoe phase was totally not worth it. I would just educate, or I would hope that they can just learn to love themselves and give themselves just a little bit more grace as honestly as early as you can in life. Like, take that guilt off of yourself, take the shame off of yourself. And when you start talking about your HS, you're gonna your person's gonna find you, you know, and we have so much dread that they're never gonna come. And I'm not saying that your soulmate's gonna come at 15 in high school, okay?
Yeah.
I'm saying that
Most likely not. I think she already
Start-
put some false hope
start-
there. Most likely not.
start talking about the HS. And the sooner you start doing that, you're going to set yourself free in more ways than you even know. And everything else is just going to follow, like whether you want it to or not. And it's all going to be okay.
And your person will love you no matter what, and they will not care about your HS.
And believe them when they say
Yes,
they love you.
please
no
do
matter
believe
what.
them, because
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, imagine being in that situation where you have to constantly fight to reassure someone. It's like you said, Sid, like after so long, people get tired of trying to do it,
Yeah.
and then they won't anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So believe them when they tell you that, because if they didn't want to be there, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
So,
They wouldn't date
yeah.
you. I mean, anyone, especially when you have HS noticeably anywhere, they know you have it.
Yeah.
Like whether you're talking to
Yeah,
them
whether you
about it
think
or
you're
not.
sly or
Yeah.
not.
When you keep
They
the lights
know.
on, they
Yeah.
can still see that poking through. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Hidradenitis Suppurativa, and we'll
See you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hidradenitis Suppurativa podcast. We are so thankful to UCB for sponsoring this episode, and we cannot wait for you guys to tune into the
We're
next.
the Hidradenitis Suppurativas. If you've got HS, you'll want to meet us. It's not your fault, put the shame to a halt. HS divas know how to have a ball. The Hidradenitis